In this video, I'm going to talk you through squat technique and some useful cues to think about whilst you're performing any kind of squat. I'm going to talk you through the air squat first because any technique and cues for the air squat can then be applied to any kind of weighted squat that you're doing. So to set up for your squat, you need to make sure that your feet are in a stable and comfortable position, generally just over hips distance apart and toes pointing out slightly. This will vary from person to person. You need to find somewhere that's comfortable for you at the top and at the bottom of your squat without your feet ending up being too wide. Once you have your feet set up in a stable and comfortable position for your squat, I want you to start thinking about your foot as a tripod, a nice stable base for you to move on. Thinking of your tripod or triangle shape, your big toe and your little toe are your top of your tripod. At the bottom is your heel, so the point of the triangle or tripod is your heel. Think about pressing your big toe, your little toe and your heel all into the floor throughout the whole of your squat to create a nice stable base for you to perform the movement on. Once you have your nice stable base set up and ready to go, make sure you start by standing up tall. Take a deep breath in, brace your core, and then start the squat with a hinge at the hips. Keep your core braced and your torso upright as you start to lower down throughout your squat. You want to keep your chest or torso as upright as you can to make sure that you maintain that nice natural curve in your spine as you move through the squat. You need to make sure you're still thinking about that tripod so you can remain balanced as you lower down. Think about sending your knees over your toes on the way down and on the way up, rather than letting your knees cave in. We want to think heels down, knees out, rather than knees in and letting your heels lift, because then your squat is going to become very unbalanced and not a stable position for you to be in. Once you get down to the bottom of the squat, initiate the ascent by driving yourself back up, making sure that your knees track over your toes the whole time. I'm going to talk you through the back squat now and the techniques and cues to keep in mind when you're back squatting from a rack. The load is placed on your back in a back squat, so the muscle groups that are targeted are going to be more posterior chain focused because of where the load is. So when you're setting up for your back squat, you need to make sure that the bar and the J hooks or wherever you're setting up on your rack, that the bar is at shoulder height, so you can receive the bar without having to go up onto your toes or without having to bend down too low. So I have the bar set up at my shoulder height, place my hands just outside shoulder distance apart so I can step underneath. Make sure that the bar is resting on your upper trap. Stand right underneath to stand the bar up. Then I'm going to take only 2 steps back. Lots of people get into a bad habit of taking loads of steps back, which is not what you want to do. Because if you think about if I've got a really heavy load on this bar and I'm all the way back here, finish my set, I'm not going to want to walk it all the way back in. So I take 2 steps back, my feet ready in my comfortable squat position, keeping in mind all those squat cues. Elbows need to be driving back behind me when I'm doing my back squat. And I want to keep the bar path as straight as possible when I'm moving through position. So I start with my break at the hips, knees drive out over my toes as I lower down, torso stays upright, and then I drive the bar back up. Thinking about keeping that torso upright so you can lower the bar down so it stays in line with your midfoot on the way down, and then drive the bar back up. So again, on the way back up, the bar stays in line with your midfoot on the ascent as well. Once you finish your back squats, walk the bar straight back into the rig, then slide it back down into your rack. Front squats now. So because the load is placed on your front in the front squats, there is a more quad focus and also core focus, as you've really got to think about using your core to maintain that upright position. Your core should be actively engaged throughout any squat, but in the front squats in particular, because the weight is on the front of your body, that's where that makes a difference. For front squats, you want the bar set up in the same way as your back squat, about shoulder height, so you don't need to come up onto your toes or bend down too low to get underneath the bar. I place my hands just outside shoulder distance. This will look different for different people, depending on how mobile you are through that front rack position. So hands outside shoulder distance, walk up to the bar, and think about shrugging your shoulders upwards so the bar rests across your shoulders as you step underneath the bar. Throughout your front squat, you want to think about driving your elbows up. So get this sorted first. Take your 2 steps back, comfortable squat position, same cues that we've been talking about. I need to keep my elbows upright the whole time. Start with that hinge at the hips, maintain the tripod foot as you lower down, keep your elbows up, torso upright, and then drive your elbows up, drive the bar up to stand up. Walk back to the rig, bar against the rack, and then bar back down into the J-hook. The main things that can make a big difference when you are front squatting is thinking about keeping your elbows up the whole time. If you feel them dropping, again, think about pushing them up as you stand up out of your squat. The other thing that can be useful to think about is your hips. If you feel that you're dropping down, think about pushing your hips forwards to stop you from rounding your back too much and letting your elbows drop. If you do really struggle with this front rack position, it can be very uncomfortable to start off with, but if you find it hard, I do suggest continuing with it just with a lighter load, because this position will get much better over time. If you stop working it, it's just never going to get any better. So I do suggest making sure that you communicate with me to make sure that we are working on that position if that's something that you want to include in your training.